The champagne glass hit the marble floor with a sound that silenced the entire ballroom. In that crystalline moment, watching the golden liquid spread across expensive Italian tile, I realized my marriage had just shattered along with it. But let me back up to Friday evening, when this nightmare began. "You're coming to the company dinner tonight," Amanda announced, not asked, as she rifled through her walk-in closet. My wife of 5 years worked at Meridian Investment Firm, one of those prestigious financial companies where everyone wore $1,000 suits and discussed market volatility like it was the weather. I looked up from my insurance adjustment reports, confused. "I thought that was next week?" "Plans changed." She pulled out a black cocktail dress that probably cost more than my monthly salary. "The new CEO is making her debut tonight. This is huge for my career." Amanda worked as a senior analyst, though she'd been angling for a promotion to vice president for the past 2 years. Every company event was a strategic opportunity in her mind, a chance to network and climb another rung on the corporate ladder. "What should I wear?" I asked, setting aside my paperwork. She barely glanced at me. "Something simple, nothing flashy." "It's a formal dinner at the Grandview Hotel, right? Should I wear my navy suit or—" "The navy is fine," she cut me off, her tone sharp with impatience. "Just don't try to stand out, okay?" I stared at her reflection in the vanity mirror. What's that supposed to mean? Amanda sighed, the kind of exaggerated exhale she reserved for when she thought I was being particularly dense. "I mean exactly what I said. I don't want you drawing attention. This is important. I'm your husband, Amanda. I think I know how to behave at a business dinner." She spun around, her expression cold. "Do you? Because last time, at the Christmas party, you spent 20 minutes talking to the janitor about boxing instead of mingling with the executives. His name is Carlos, and he used to train fighters in Puerto Rico before. See, this is exactly what I'm talking about." She turned back to her makeup, applying foundation with sharp, angry strokes. "Tonight isn't about making friends with the help. It's about my future." The word help stung. Carlos was a good man with incredible stories, but to Amanda, anyone who wasn't wearing a suit and discussing quarterly reports was invisible. I retreated to our bedroom to change, her words echoing in my head. In the early days of our marriage, Amanda used to introduce me proudly at company events. "This is my husband, Jake. He's an insurance adjuster. He investigates fraud cases." Back then, she seemed impressed by my work, calling me a real-life detective. Now, apparently, I was an embarrassment she needed to manage. The Grandview Hotel's ballroom was everything I expected. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, and the kind of ostentatious flower arrangements that cost more than most people's rent. Amanda's coworkers filled the space, a sea of expensive suits and practiced smiles. The moment we walked through the doors, Amanda transformed. Her shoulders straightened, her smile became radiant, and she immediately began working the room like a politician at a fundraiser. "Amanda, you look stunning," gushed Sienna Morrison, Amanda's closest friend at the firm. Sienna worked in HR and had the kind of fake friendliness that made my skin crawl. "And Jake, how nice to see you again." The pause before nice spoke volumes. "Good to see you too, Sienna," I replied, forcing a smile. Amanda was already scanning the room, identifying key targets for conversation. She turned to me, her voice low but firm. "I need to network. Just stand behind everyone, okay? Don't make me look bad." The words hit me like a physical blow. Stand behind everyone, like I was a child who might misbehave, or worse, like I was some kind of liability she needed to hide. "What did you just say?" I asked, certain I'd misheard. Her eyes darted around, making sure no one was listening. "You heard me. This is crucial for my career. I can't have you know." "No, I don't know. Enlighten me." "You're embarrassing when you stand next to me," she hissed, her smile never wavering for the benefit of anyone watching. "Just blend into the background." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "I'm your husband, and I'm asking you to help me succeed." She touched my arm, but it felt calculating rather than affectionate. "Please, Jake, just for tonight." Without waiting for a response, she walked away, immediately engaging a group of executives in animated conversation about market trends. I stood there, stunned, watching my wife of 5 years dismiss me like I was a stranger who'd overstayed his welcome. I moved to the back of the room, positioning myself near the wall where the servers entered and exited. From there, I had a perfect view of Amanda in her element, a charming, intelligent, completely in control. She laughed at jokes that probably weren't funny, nodded sagely at observations that were likely obvious, and generally played the part of the ambitious executive climbing the corporate ladder. Other spouses mingled freely, engaging in conversations, sharing drinks, clearly comfortable in their partner's professional world. But I stood alone, following orders to remain invisible. "Ladies and gentlemen," the current CEO, Richard Blackstone, called for attention, "I'd like to announce that our new Chief Executive Officer has arrived and will be making her entrance shortly." The room fell silent, conversations halting mid-sentence. This was the moment Amanda had been preparing for, her chance to make a first impression on the woman who would control her professional future. The ballroom doors opened, and a woman in her early 40s entered. She was elegant without being flashy, powerful without being intimidating, and she carried herself with the kind of confidence that comes from earning respect rather than demanding it. Amanda immediately pushed through the crowd, trying to position herself for an introduction. I watched from my assigned spot in the background as my wife prepared to deploy her most charming smile. But the new CEO barely glanced at Amanda. Instead, her eyes swept the room systematically, as if she was looking for someone specific. When her gaze reached the back of the ballroom, it locked onto mine. Time seemed to stop. Those eyes, I knew those eyes. Even after 20 years, even across a crowded room, I recognized them immediately. Sarah Chen walked past the entire crowd of eager executives, past Amanda's outstretched hand and practiced introduction, straight toward me. The room watched in stunned silence as the new CEO approached the man who'd been ordered to hide in the background. She stopped directly in front of me, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "I never stopped searching for you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. That's when Amanda's champagne glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the marble floor. The silence in the ballroom was deafening. 200 of the city's most influential business leaders stood frozen, watching their new CEO have what appeared to be an emotional breakdown in front of a man they'd barely noticed. I stared at Sarah, my mind racing to process what was happening. The last time I'd seen her, we were 22 years old, standing in the parking lot of our college dormitory, both of us crying as her parents loaded her belongings into their car. "Sarah," I whispered, my voice barely audible. She nodded, tears now flowing freely down her cheeks. "It's really you. After all these years, I can't believe it's really you." Amanda pushed through the crowd, her face a mask of confusion and growing panic. "Excuse me, but what exactly is happening here?" Sarah finally turned to acknowledge my wife, though she kept one hand on my arm as if afraid I might disappear again. "I'm sorry. You must be—" "Amanda Harrison. I work for Meridian. I've been looking forward to meeting you." Amanda extended her hand with forced professionalism, clearly trying to regain control of the situation. "Harrison," Sarah repeated, looking between Amanda and me. "And you are?" "I'm the new CEO," Sarah replied simply. "But more importantly, this man is the love of my life." The words hit the room like a bomb. I heard gasps, whispers, and what sounded like someone choking on their drink. Amanda's face went completely white. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" Amanda's voice was barely controlled. Sarah's attention returned to me, her eyes drinking in every detail of my face as if she was afraid I might vanish. "Jake, I searched for you for years. After my parents forced me to move to Singapore, I hired private investigators, I used social media, I tried everything. You just disappeared." The memories came flooding back. Sarah and I had met during our sophomore year at Northwestern. She was studying international business. I was majoring in criminal justice with dreams of becoming a detective. We were inseparable for 2 years, planning our future together, talking about marriage after graduation. Then her parents found out about our relationship. To say they disapproved would be an understatement. Sarah came from old money, a family with connections that traced back generations. Her father owned a shipping empire, her mother sat on the boards of half a dozen charities. I was a scholarship kid from the south side of Chicago, working 3 jobs to pay for school. They gave her an ultimatum: end the relationship and come work for the family business in Asia, or be completely cut off financially and socially. "I thought you chose them," I said quietly, aware that every person in the room was straining to hear our conversation. "I never chose them," Sarah replied fiercely. "They told me you'd taken money to disappear. They showed me bank records, a signed agreement. I thought you'd decided I wasn't worth fighting for." My heart stopped. "What?" "They said you'd accepted $50,000 to walk away and never contact me again. They had documentation, Jake. Your signature." I felt the world tilt on its axis. "Sarah, I never took any money. I never signed anything. After you left for Singapore, I tried to find you for months. I called, I wrote letters, I even tried to contact your parents. They had their lawyers send me a cease and desist order, threatened to have me arrested for harassment." Her face crumpled. "Oh God, they forged it. They forged everything." Amanda had been listening to this exchange with growing horror, but now she stepped forward aggressively. I'm sorry, but this is completely inappropriate. You can't just waltz into a business function and have some kind of emotional reunion with someone else's husband. For the first time since she'd entered the room, Sarah's attention fully focused on Amanda. Her expression shifted from emotional to coldly professional in an instant. You're absolutely right, Sarah said, her voice now carrying the authority of someone used to commanding boardrooms. This is inappropriate, but not for the reasons you think. She turned to me, her business persona fully engaged. Jake, I have to ask, are you happy in your marriage? I looked at Amanda, who was staring at me with a mixture of panic and warning in her eyes. An hour ago, she'd ordered me to hide in the background so I wouldn't embarrass her. She'd told me I was a liability, someone who needed to be managed and contained. Honestly, I said, my voice carrying across the silent room. No, I'm not. Amanda's face went from white to red. Jake, you can't just... Can't what? I interrupted. Tell the truth? Isn't that what you're always saying you value? Honesty and transparency? Sarah's eyes narrowed as she looked at Amanda with new interest. How exactly do you treat him? That's none of your business, Amanda snapped. Actually, it is my business. This man was the most important person in my life, and if he's unhappy, I want to know why. I could feel 20 years of suppressed hurt and disappointment rising to the surface. She told me to stand behind everyone tonight so I wouldn't embarrass her. Apparently, I'm not good enough to stand next to my own wife at a business function. The room erupted in whispers. Sarah's expression went from concerned to furious. You told him to hide? Sarah's voice was dangerously quiet. Amanda tried to recover. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. This is a competitive environment, and what? You're ashamed of your husband? I never said that. You didn't have to. Sarah turned back to me. Jake, I need you to know something. After my parents separated us, I spent 5 years in Singapore learning the business. Then I moved to London, then New York, building my career and searching for you. I never married because I never found anyone who could compare to what we had. She paused, her voice becoming softer. I became a CEO because I wanted to have enough power and money that no one could ever separate me from the people I love again. Every promotion, every success, every board appointment. It was all so I could find you and protect you. Amanda laughed bitterly. This is insane. You can't just show up after 20 years and expect... Expect what? Sarah interrupted. Expect the man I love to be treated with respect by his own wife. Expect him to be valued for who he is rather than hidden like some shameful secret. The crowd was completely captivated now. This was better than any soap opera, and it was happening right in front of them. Sarah continued, her voice growing stronger. I've spent 2 decades building a fortune worth over $2 billion. I sit on the boards of 12 major corporations. I have homes in 6 countries and more power than my parents ever dreamed of. And you know what I would trade it all for? She looked directly at me. One more day with the man who used to make me laugh until my stomach hurt. Who would walk me to class even when his was on the opposite side of campus? Who worked 3 jobs but still found time to leave little notes in my textbooks? I remembered those notes. Silly jokes, words of encouragement before exams, little declarations of love hidden between pages about economics and business theory. Sarah, I began, but she held up her hand. I know you're married. I know 20 years have passed. But I also know that the man I fell in love with deserves better than being told to hide in the background. She turned to Amanda one final time. You have something precious, and you're treating it like garbage. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. Amanda's composure finally cracked completely. You can't talk to me like that. I don't care who you are. You have no right. Actually, I have every right, Sarah said calmly. Because as of Monday morning, Meridian Investment Firm will be terminating its contract with this hotel for all future events. We'll also be reviewing all of our current partnerships and personnel decisions. The implication was clear. Amanda's career was in Sarah's hands. You can't do this, Amanda whispered. I can, and I will. Security will escort you out now. Consider your employment with Meridian terminated, effective immediately. The room exploded into chaos. Amanda began screaming about lawsuits and wrongful termination while 2 security guards approached to remove her. Executives scrambled to distance themselves from the drama while simultaneously trying to position themselves favorably with their new CEO. Through it all, Sarah never took her eyes off me. As Amanda was led away, still shouting threats and accusations, Sarah stepped closer. I know this is overwhelming, she said quietly. I know you need time to process everything. But Jake, I meant what I said. I never stopped looking for you, and I never stopped loving you. She pressed a business card into my hand. When you're ready to talk, call me. I'll be waiting." Then she turned to address the stunned crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the disruption. Please enjoy the rest of your evening." She walked out of the ballroom with the same confidence she'd entered with, leaving me standing alone in a room full of strangers, holding her business card and trying to understand how my entire life had just changed in the span of 20 minutes. I sat in my car in the hotel parking garage for 2 hours, staring at Sarah's business card and trying to process what had just happened. The elegant script read, "Sarah Chen, Chief Executive Officer, Chen Global Industries." Below that, a phone number with a note written in her familiar handwriting. "Call me when you're ready. S." My phone had been buzzing constantly since I'd left the ballroom. 17 missed calls from Amanda, 34 text messages that grew increasingly frantic and accusatory. I scrolled through them, watching my wife's emotional journey play out in digital form. "Where are you? We need to talk. This is insane. You can't seriously be considering this. She's manipulating you. Can't you see that? 20 years, Jake. 20 years. I'm your wife. If you throw away our marriage for some fantasy, you'll regret it forever. I'm at home. Come back so we can figure this out like adults." The final message, sent just 10 minutes ago, was different in tone. "I've called my lawyer. Don't think you can just walk away from 5 years of marriage without consequences." I turned off my phone and drove home through the quiet suburban streets. Our house looked exactly the same as it had that morning. 2-story colonial, perfectly manicured lawn, the picture of middle-class success. But everything felt different now, like I was seeing it through new eyes. Amanda's car was in the driveway, and every light in the house was on. I could see her pacing in the living room through the front window, phone pressed to her ear, probably talking to her sister or one of her friends, crafting a narrative that painted her as the victim of some elaborate scheme. I used my key to enter quietly, hoping to avoid an immediate confrontation. No such luck. "Jake?" Amanda appeared in the hallway before I'd even closed the door. Her makeup was smudged, her carefully styled hair disheveled. "Where the hell have you been? I've been calling for hours." I needed time to think. "Think about what? There's nothing to think about. Some woman from your past shows up and makes a scene, and suddenly you're questioning our entire marriage." I hung my jacket in the closet, moving slowly and deliberately. Everything felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life unfold. "She didn't just show up, Amanda. She's been looking for me for 20 years. So what? You've been married to me for 5 years. Doesn't that count for anything?" I turned to face her, really looking at my wife for the first time in months. When had she become so angry all the time? When had her default expression become one of irritation and disappointment? "Tell me something," I said quietly. "When was the last time you were proud of me?" The question caught her off guard. "What?" "When was the last time you introduced me to someone and seemed genuinely happy that I was your husband?" Amanda's mouth opened and closed several times. That's not fair. You're changing the subject." "No, I'm not. You told me tonight to stand behind everyone so I wouldn't embarrass you. You said I was embarrassing when I stood next to you. When did I become someone you needed to hide?" "I never said you were embarrassing." "Those were your exact words, Amanda. You're embarrassing when you stand next to me." She began pacing again, her hands gesturing frantically. "You're taking it out of context. I was nervous about meeting the new CEO. I wanted everything to be perfect. And I was the imperfection that needed to be managed." "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean? Explain to me how telling your husband to hide in the background could possibly mean anything else." Amanda stopped pacing and stared at me with something approaching desperation. "I work in a competitive field, Jake. Image matters. The way people perceive you affects your career prospects." "And how do people perceive me, exactly?" Another long pause. You investigate insurance fraud. You didn't go to an Ivy League school. You don't understand the nuances of corporate culture. So I'm not good enough for your world." "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to. It's been obvious for years." I sat down on the couch, suddenly exhausted. "When we first got married, you used to tell people I was like a detective, that my job was interesting and important. Now you act like I'm some blue-collar embarrassment you have to apologize for." Amanda sat down across from me, her voice becoming pleading. "That's not true. I love you, Jake. I married you. You married the version of me that you thought you could change, the version that would eventually become someone more suitable for your ambitions. That's not fair, isn't it? When was the last time you asked about my work? When was the last time you seemed interested in anything I had to say that wasn't directly related to your career or your social life?" She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again. We both knew the answer. This is about her, isn't it? Amanda's voice turned bitter. Your college girlfriend shows up with her sob story, and suddenly I'm the villain. This is about us, Amanda. It's about the fact that I spent tonight feeling like a stranger at my own wife's company event. It's about the fact that you've made it clear that I'm not good enough for the life you want. So what are you saying? You're going to throw away 5 years of marriage for someone you haven't seen in 20 years? I looked around our living room. The expensive furniture Amanda had chosen, the artwork that reflected her taste, the books on the shelves that were all hers. When had this stopped feeling like our home and started feeling like a place I was temporarily staying? I'm saying that tonight, for the first time in years, someone looked at me like I mattered, like I was worth searching for, like I was valuable exactly as I am. Amanda's face crumpled. I look at you like you matter. No, you don't. You look at me like I'm a project that isn't progressing the way you hoped. My phone, which I'd turned back on, buzzed with a text message. Amanda lunged for it, but I was quicker. The message wasn't from Sarah. It was from my brother Mike, who lived across the country and rarely called unless something was wrong. Saw the video online. Holy shit, dude. Call me. What video? I muttered, opening my browser and searching for Meridian Investment CEO Ballroom. The first result made my stomach drop. Someone had recorded the entire confrontation and posted it on social media. The video had already been shared thousands of times, with comments ranging from supportive, that CEO is a badass, to critical, home record destroys marriage at business dinner. Amanda read over my shoulder, her face going pale. Oh God, everyone's going to see this. The video was surprisingly clear, probably shot by someone near the front of the crowd. You could hear every word of our conversation, see Amanda's face as she realized her career was ending, watch the security guards escort her out while she screamed about lawsuits. My parents are going to see this, Amanda whispered. My friends, my colleagues, everyone I know. For the first time since we'd gotten home, I felt a flicker of sympathy for her. Whatever else had happened between us, she didn't deserve to have her humiliation broadcast to the world. Maybe it'll blow over, I said, though we both knew it wouldn't. Amanda was scrolling through the comments now, her face growing more horrified with each one. They're calling me a gold digger. They're saying I got what I deserved. Look at this one. Imagine being married to a good man and treating him like garbage because you're ashamed of his job. She threw the phone down and burst into tears. This is going to ruin everything. My career, my reputation, everything I've worked for. I watched my wife cry and felt nothing. No urge to comfort her, no desire to tell her it would be okay, just a strange, empty calm. Amanda, I said quietly, I'm going to stay at a hotel tonight. We both need time to think about what we want. She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. If you leave now, if you walk out that door, I'll never forgive you. I'm not walking out. I'm taking a break to figure out what comes next. It's her, isn't it? You're going to call her. I considered lying, but what was the point? Yes, I'm going to call her. Amanda's expression hardened. Then don't bother coming back. If you choose her over me, over our marriage, then we're done. I stood up and headed toward the stairs to pack a bag. Maybe we've been done for a long time, and we just didn't want to admit it. As I climbed the stairs, I could hear Amanda on the phone again, probably calling her lawyer to discuss divorce proceedings. The sound of her voice faded as I entered our bedroom and began throwing clothes into a suitcase. 20 minutes later, I was back in my car with a week's worth of clothes and toiletries. I drove to a hotel near the airport, checked in under the harsh fluorescent lights of the lobby, and finally at 1:47 a.m. dialed the number on Sarah's business card. She answered on the first ring. I was hoping you'd call, she said softly. I left, I told her. I left my house, my wife, everything. Are you okay? I thought about the question for a long moment. I think so. For the first time in years, I think I might actually be okay. Where are you? Airport Marriott, room 412. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Sarah arrived exactly 20 minutes later, carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing jeans and a Northwestern University sweatshirt that made her look exactly like the girl I'd fallen in love with 22 years ago. I thought you might need caffeine, she said, handing me one of the cups. We sat on opposite ends of the hotel room's small couch, the space between us filled with 2 decades of separation and the weight of everything that had happened tonight. I can't believe you kept that sweatshirt, I said. She looked down at the faded purple fabric. I kept a lot of things, probably more than I should have. Tell me about Singapore. Tell me about everything. Sarah curled her legs under her, cradling her coffee cup like she was trying to warm herself. It was hell at first, My parents enrolled me in their company's management training program, thinking that if they kept me busy enough, I'd forget about you and focus on the family business. But you didn't. I spent every free moment trying to find you. This was before social media made it easy to track people down. I hired 3 different private investigators over the years. The first one told me you'd moved to California and changed your name. The second one said you'd joined the military and were stationed overseas. The third one finally admitted that someone was paying him to give me false information. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the hotel's air conditioning. Your parents? My father, specifically. He was very thorough in his efforts to keep us apart. Sarah set down her coffee and pulled out her phone, scrolling through photos until she found what she was looking for. She handed it to me, and I found myself looking at a picture of a document, a contract with my forged signature, agreeing to accept $50,000 in exchange for ending all contact with Sarah Chen. The signature looks perfect, I said, studying the image. How did they? They had samples of your handwriting from letters you'd sent me. My father hired a professional forger. Her voice was bitter. He was very proud of himself for thinking of it. Jesus, Sarah, I'm so sorry. You have nothing to apologize for. We were both victims. She took back the phone and put it away. I didn't find out the truth until 3 years ago when my father was dying. He confessed everything, thinking it would bring us closer together. Instead, it made me realize I'd wasted 15 years believing a lie. Is that when you started looking for me again? That's when I hired the best investigative firm in the country and told them money was no object. It took them 2 years to track you down. I thought about the last 2 years of my marriage, how Amanda had grown increasingly distant and critical. Had some part of me sensed that change was coming? Why didn't you contact me directly once you found me? Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Because you were married. I had surveillance photos of you and Amanda together, looking happy. I saw your wedding announcement in the local paper's online archives. I convinced myself that you'd moved on, that you'd found someone who made you happy. So why take the job at Meridian? Because I'm a masochist, apparently. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. I told myself I just wanted to see you one more time to make sure you were okay. I was going to observe from a distance and then disappear again. What changed? I saw how she treated you tonight. The way she dismissed you, the way she was ashamed of you. It made me furious. Sarah's voice grew stronger. You were the kindest, most genuine person I'd ever known. The idea that someone would make you feel like you weren't good enough was unbearable. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, both of us processing the magnitude of what had happened. Finally, I asked the question that had been nagging at me. The business, Chen Global Industries, that's all yours? Every penny. I started with a small import-export company in Singapore, then expanded into shipping, then manufacturing, then real estate. I have offices in 12 countries and employ over 40,000 people. That's incredible, Sarah. Your parents must be dead, she said simply. My father died 3 years ago, my mother last year. We never reconciled after his deathbed confession. I'm sorry. Don't be. They made their choices. She looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Jake, I need you to understand something. I didn't build this empire to impress you or win you back. I built it because I was angry and heartbroken, and work was the only thing that made the pain bearable. I understand. But now that I've found you again, now that I know the truth about what happened, I want to share it with you. I want to give you everything I couldn't give you 20 years ago. The offer hung in the air between us, massive and life-changing. 24 hours ago, I'd been a middle-class insurance adjuster married to a woman who was ashamed of me. Now I was being offered a life beyond my wildest dreams by the woman I'd never stopped loving. This is moving very fast, I said. It is. And if you need time to think, if you need space to process everything, I'll understand. I've waited 20 years. I can wait longer. I studied her face, looking for signs of the girl I'd known in college. She was there, underneath the confidence and success, still the same person who used to fall asleep in my arms while we studied together in the library. What happened to us was stolen, I said finally. 20 years of our lives, stolen by people who thought they knew what was best for us. Yes. I don't want to waste any more time. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. What are you saying? I'm saying that I've spent 5 years in a marriage with someone who sees me as a liability. I've spent 5 years being made to feel small and inadequate and not good enough. I reached across the couch and took her hand. I'm saying that life is short, and I've already lost too much time with the person I was meant to be with. She squeezed my hand tightly. Are you sure? Because once we do this, once we're together, there's no going back. Amanda will make the divorce as difficult as possible. The media attention will be intense. Your whole life will change. My whole life already changed tonight, the moment you walked into that ballroom. Sarah moved closer on the couch, close enough that I could smell her perfume, the same scent she'd worn in college. I love you, Jake. I never stopped loving you. I never stopped loving you either. I just convinced myself I had to. When she kissed me, it was like coming home after 20 years of being lost. Everything that had felt wrong in my life suddenly made sense. This was what I'd been missing, this connection, this feeling of being completely understood and accepted. We talked until sunrise, filling in the gaps of 2 decades apart. Sarah told me about her loneliness, her string of failed relationships with men who were intimidated by her success or only interested in her money. I told her about the slow death of my marriage, the way Amanda had gradually made me feel like I was never quite enough. I want to do this right, Sarah said as dawn light filtered through the hotel room curtains. I want to court you properly, the way I would have if we'd never been separated. We're not 22 anymore, Sarah. We don't have to follow anyone else's timeline. I know, but I also know that you're technically still married, and I don't want to be the other woman, even temporarily. I thought about Amanda's ultimatum, her threat to never forgive me if I chose Sarah. I'll file for divorce on Monday. No fault, 50-50 split of assets. I won't ask for anything beyond what's legally mine. And I'll make sure you have the best lawyer money can buy. I don't need... Yes, you do. Amanda is going to fight dirty, and you need someone who can protect you. I knew she was right. The video of our confrontation was still spreading across social media, and Amanda's humiliation would only make her more vindictive. What happens after the divorce? I asked. Sarah smiled, the same radiant expression that had made me fall in love with her in college. After the divorce, we have the rest of our lives to figure out. My phone buzzed with another text from Amanda. I know she's with you. I hope you're happy with your whore. I deleted the message without responding and turned off my phone. No more looking back, I said. No more looking back, Sarah agreed. The divorce papers were filed on Monday morning at 9 a.m. sharp. By 9:15, Amanda's lawyer had called mine, screaming about adultery and demanding everything from alimony to half of Sarah's fortune. By noon, the story had been picked up by 3 local news stations and 2 gossip blogs. Insurance adjuster leaves wife for billionaire CEO, read the headline on Channel 7's website. The accompanying photo was a screenshot from the viral video, showing Sarah and me looking at each other while Amanda stood between us, her face a mask of horror. I was sitting in the office of Margaret Kellerman, the divorce attorney Sarah had recommended, watching my personal life become public entertainment. Your wife's legal team is going to argue that you planned this entire scenario, Margaret explained, reviewing the papers Amanda's lawyer had filed. They're claiming that you and Ms. Chen conspired to humiliate Mrs. Harrison publicly in order to force her out of her job and destroy her reputation. That's insane. Sarah and I hadn't spoken in 20 years. I know that, and you know that, but they're going to try to paint a picture of a long-term affair. They're demanding access to your phone records, email accounts, and financial statements going back 5 years. Margaret was a sharp woman in her 50s who'd built a reputation for handling high-profile divorces with discretion and ruthless efficiency. Sarah had assured me she was the best in the city. What about the no-fault filing? I asked. They rejected it. Mrs. Harrison is filing for divorce on grounds of adultery and emotional cruelty. She's asking for the house, your retirement accounts, alimony, and punitive damages for emotional distress. Emotional distress? She's the one who spent years treating me like an embarrassment. Unfortunately, there's no legal precedent for divorcing someone because they hurt your feelings at a business dinner. Margaret's tone was dry but sympathetic. However, we do have some advantages. She pulled out a tablet and showed me a compilation of social media posts and news articles about the confrontation. Public opinion is overwhelmingly on your side. The video shows clearly that Mrs. Harrison was dismissive and condescending toward you. The narrative that's emerging is of a working-class man who was emotionally abused by his social climbing wife. I don't want this to be a media circus. I'm afraid that ship has sailed, but we can use the attention to our advantage. Your wife's legal team is going to try to paint you as a gold digger who abandoned his marriage for money. The public's sympathy makes that narrative much harder to sell. My phone rang, Sarah calling from her office downtown. How did it go? She asked. About as badly as expected. Amanda's fighting everything. I figured she would. Margaret will handle her. Sarah, there's something I need to tell you. Amanda's lawyer is going to try to prove we were having an affair before the divorce. They're going to dig into both of our backgrounds, looking for any connection over the past few years. Let them dig. They won't find anything because there's nothing to find. But the media attention is the price we pay for 20 years of separation. Jake, I've been dealing with hostile press and invasive reporters for a decade. I know how to handle this. After we hung up, Margaret walked me through the timeline for the divorce proceedings. In Illinois, contested divorces typically took 6 months to a year to resolve. Amanda's legal strategy seemed designed to drag things out as long as possible, probably hoping that the media attention would pressure me into accepting a less favorable settlement. "There's one more thing," Margaret said as I prepared to leave. "Mrs. Harrison's legal team has hired a private investigator to follow you and Ms. Chen. They're looking for any evidence of inappropriate behavior while you're still technically married. So we're being watched. Constantly. I'd recommend being very careful about your interactions until the divorce is finalized." I left the law office feeling like I'd entered a war zone. The parking garage was full of reporters and photographers, all shouting questions as I made my way to my car. "Mr. Harrison, how long have you been in love with Sarah Chen? Are you planning to quit your job now that you're dating a billionaire? What do you say to people who call you a gold digger?" I ignored them all and drove to my temporary apartment, a furnished one-bedroom place Sarah had arranged for me in a building with good security. The lease was in my name, paid for with my own money to avoid any appearance of impropriety. The apartment felt sterile and impersonal, nothing like the home I'd shared with Amanda. But it was mine, free from the constant criticism and emotional manipulation that had defined my marriage. I was unpacking the last of my clothes when there was a knock at the door. Through the peephole, I could see a young woman with a press badge and a camera crew behind her. "Mr. Harrison, I'm Jennifer Walsh from Channel 12 News. I was hoping we could talk about your relationship with Sarah Chen." I didn't answer, but she kept talking through the door. "We're running a story tonight about wealthy women who prey on married men. I wanted to give you a chance to comment before it airs." The implication was clear. They were going to paint Sarah as a predator whether I cooperated or not. I called her immediately. "They're trying to flip the narrative," I told her. "Make you the villain who destroyed an innocent marriage. I expected this. My PR team is already working on a response. Sarah, maybe I should do an interview. Tell my side of the story." "Absolutely not. Anything you say will be taken out of context and used against us in the divorce. We stay quiet and let our lawyers handle this." That evening, I watched Channel 12's hit piece from my sterile apartment. They'd found 3 women who claimed Sarah had a pattern of pursuing married men, though none of them could provide any evidence. They interviewed a relationship expert who talked about the psychological profile of wealthy women who enjoyed stealing husbands from their wives. The only factual part of the story was the basic timeline. Sarah and I had known each other in college. She'd become successful. We'd reconnected at the business dinner. Everything else was speculation and innuendo designed to make her look predatory and manipulative. My phone exploded with calls and texts from friends, family, and former colleagues. Most were supportive, but a few were clearly fishing for information they could sell to the media. The worst call came from my mother. "Jake, honey, I saw the news. Are you sure you know what you're doing?" "I'm getting divorced from a woman who made me miserable, Mom. I thought you'd be happy about that." "But this Sarah woman, she's very wealthy, isn't she? People are going to think whatever they want to think. I can't control that. I just don't want you to get hurt again. 20 years is a long time. People change." "Some people change. Some people stay exactly the same underneath, no matter how much time passes. Just be careful, sweetheart. Promise me you'll be careful." After I hung up, I sat in my empty apartment and wondered if I'd made a terrible mistake. The life I'd known was gone, destroyed in a single evening. My marriage was over, my privacy was gone, and I was now public enemy number 1 in Amanda's war for sympathy. But then I thought about Sarah's face when she'd seen me across that ballroom. The recognition, the joy, the tears of happiness at finding something she'd thought was lost forever. I thought about Amanda's face when she'd told me to stand behind everyone so I wouldn't embarrass her. The choice was clear, even if the consequences were complicated. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Thinking of you. Tomorrow will be better." For the first time since leaving Margaret's office, I smiled. 3 months into the divorce proceedings, Amanda made her final, desperate play. She'd lost the media war. Public opinion had solidified against her after several of her former colleagues came forward with stories about her treatment of subordinates and her general arrogance. The video of our confrontation had been viewed over 2 million times, and the comments section had become a referendum on toxic marriages and emotional abuse. But Amanda had one card left to play, and she played it on a Thursday afternoon in late spring. I was leaving my apartment to meet Sarah for lunch when I found Amanda waiting by my car. She looked different, thinner, with dark circles under her eyes, and an expensive but ill-fitting suit that suggested she was struggling financially. "We need to talk," she said. "We have lawyers for that." "This isn't about the divorce. This is about her." I stopped walking. "What about her?" Amanda pulled out her phone and showed me a photograph. It was Sarah, taken with a telephoto lens, entering a building I didn't recognize. "Do you know where this is?" Amanda asked. I studied the image. "No." "It's a fertility clinic. Your precious Sarah has been there 6 times in the past month." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "So?" "So she's 42 years old, Jake. Her biological clock is ticking, and she's planning to trap you with a baby." "That's insane." "Is it? Think about it. She shows up after 20 years, destroys our marriage, and now she's secretly preparing to get pregnant. She knows that once you have a child together, you'll never leave her, no matter what you find out about her." Amanda stepped closer, her voice becoming urgent. "I hired a private investigator to look into her background. Do you want to know what he found?" "No." "She's been engaged 4 times, Jake. 4 different men, all wealthy, all married when she met them. She has a pattern of targeting successful married men, breaking up their marriages, and then moving on when she gets bored." "You're lying." Amanda scrolled through her phone and showed me a series of photographs and documents. Marcus Webb, oil executive from Texas, divorced his wife for Sarah in 2015, engaged for 8 months before she broke it off. David Chen, no relation, just a coincidence, tech entrepreneur from Seattle. Same pattern, same timeline. Then there was... I grabbed the phone from her hands and threw it across the parking lot. It shattered against a concrete pillar. "You're pathetic," I said. "You're so desperate to win that you'll make up elaborate lies about a woman you barely know." Amanda's composure finally cracked completely. "I'm trying to save you from making the biggest mistake of your life. She doesn't love you, Jake. She loves the idea of you, the fantasy of her college romance. But when the novelty wears off, when she realizes you're just an ordinary man with an ordinary job, she'll throw you away like she did all the others. Even if that were true, it would still be better than staying married to you." The words hit her like a physical blow. Amanda staggered backward, tears streaming down her face. "I loved you," she whispered. "I know I wasn't perfect. I know I made mistakes, but I loved you." "No, you didn't. You loved the idea of being married. You loved having someone to control and manage and fix, but you never loved me." "That's not true." "When was the last time you asked me about my dreams, Amanda? When was the last time you seemed interested in my thoughts or feelings about anything that didn't directly affect you?" She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again. "You can't answer, because it never happened. In 5 years of marriage, you never once asked me what I wanted out of life. I wanted us to be successful together. I wanted us to build something." "You wanted to build something. I was just supposed to be a supporting character in your story." Amanda wiped her eyes, trying to regain her composure. "Fine. You want to throw your life away for some fantasy? Go ahead. But don't come crying to me when she breaks your heart." "I won't." She started to walk away, then turned back one final time. "The fertility clinic visits are real, Jake. Whatever else you think about me, that part is true. Ask her about it." After she left, I sat in my car for a long time, staring at the shattered remains of her phone. The photographs she'd shown me had looked genuine, but Amanda was desperate enough to fabricate evidence. The fertility clinic accusation was more troubling, mainly because it was so specific and easily verified. I drove to Sarah's office building, a gleaming 40-story tower in the financial district. Her assistant, a polite young man named David, escorted me to the executive floor where Sarah's corner office overlooked the entire city. "This is a nice surprise," Sarah said, standing up from her desk to greet me with a kiss. "I thought we were meeting at the restaurant. We need to talk." Something in my tone made her expression shift from pleasure to concern. "What's wrong?" I told her about Amanda's ambush, her accusations, and the photographs. Sarah listened without interrupting, her face growing more serious with each detail. "She's getting desperate," Sarah said when I finished. "The divorce is almost final, and she's running out of options." "Are the photographs real?" "Probably. Amanda's private investigator has been following me for months." "And the fertility clinic?" Sarah was quiet for a long moment, then walked to her office window and stared out at the city below. "Yes," she said finally. "I've been going to a fertility clinic." I felt the world tilt slightly. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I knew you'd react exactly like this. I knew you'd think I was trying to trap you or manipulate you." "Are you?" She turned around, her eyes flashing with anger. "Do you really think so little of me?" I don't know what to think. We've been together for 3 months, and you're already planning to have children without discussing it with me. I'm not planning anything. I'm exploring options. What does that mean? Sarah sat down heavily in her chair, suddenly looking older than her 42 years. It means that I'm not getting any younger, Jake. It means that I spent 20 years building a career instead of having a family, and now I'm wondering if I waited too long. So you decided to take matters into your own hands? I decided to find out if it was even possible. The doctor ran some tests, did some evaluations. I wanted to know if having children was still an option before I invested too much emotionally in the idea. I sat down across from her desk, trying to process this information. And what did you find out? That it's possible, but risky. That I'd need fertility treatments, and even then, the chances of a successful pregnancy are less than 30%. Why didn't you tell me? Because we're not even divorced yet, Jake. Because I didn't want to put pressure on you or make you feel like you had to make decisions about our future before you were ready. But you were making decisions. You were planning a future that included children without asking if I wanted the same thing. Sarah's expression softened. You're right. I should have talked to you first. I was scared that if I brought it up too early, you'd think I was moving too fast or that I had ulterior motives. Do you? Want children, I mean. I don't know. I think so. I never had the chance to find out because I was too busy chasing success and trying to find you. She leaned forward, her voice becoming earnest. But Jake, I need you to understand something. Whatever I decide about children, it's not about trapping you or manipulating you. It's about the fact that I'm 42 years old and running out of time to make that choice. I thought about Amanda's accusations, her claims about Sarah's pattern of broken engagements and abandoned relationships. Amanda says you've done this before, that you have a history of breaking up marriages and then moving on. Amanda is lying. She had photographs, documents, forged or taken out of context. Jake, I've had exactly 3 serious relationships since college. One ended because he wanted children and I was too focused on my career. One ended because he was intimidated by my success and wanted me to be less ambitious. The third ended because he was only interested in my money. What about the engagements? I was engaged once to the first man I mentioned. It lasted 6 months before we both realized we wanted different things out of life. I studied her face, looking for signs of deception. But Sarah had never been a good liar, even in college. When she was being dishonest, she couldn't maintain eye contact, and her voice became higher pitched. Right now, she was looking directly at me with steady, clear eyes. I believe you, I said finally. Thank you. But I need you to promise me something. No more secrets, no more making plans without talking to me first. If we're going to do this, if we're going to build a life together, it has to be based on complete honesty. I promise. And I need time to think about the children question. It's not that I'm opposed to it, but it's a big decision, and I want to make sure I'm making it for the right reasons. Sarah nodded. Of course. Take all the time you need. I stood up to leave, then paused at her office door. For what it's worth, I think you'd be an amazing mother. Her smile was radiant. Really? Really. You're patient, you're kind, you're incredibly smart. Any child would be lucky to have you. Even at 42? Especially at 42. You know who you are now. You have the resources to give a child everything they could possibly need. And most importantly, you'd be choosing to have children because you want them, not because society expects it or because you're trying to save a failing relationship. That evening, I called Amanda's lawyer and authorized a settlement offer that gave her everything she'd originally asked for except the alimony. I wanted the divorce finalized as quickly as possible, and I was tired of fighting over material possessions that had never mattered to me anyway. The divorce was final 2 weeks later. I signed the papers in Margaret's office on a sunny Friday morning, officially ending my marriage to Amanda Harrison and beginning the next chapter of my life. Sarah was waiting for me in the parking lot when I emerged from the law office. How do you feel? She asked. Free, I said. For the first time in years, I feel completely free. Good, because I have something to ask you. She pulled out a small velvet box and dropped to one knee right there in the parking lot, in front of the divorce lawyer's office, with reporters and photographers capturing every moment. Jake Harrison, she said, her voice carrying clearly in the spring air. I lost you once because other people made decisions about our future without asking what we wanted. I'm not going to make that mistake again. She opened the box, revealing a simple platinum band with a single diamond. Will you marry me? The cameras clicked frantically as I stared down at the woman I'd loved for over 20 years. The woman who'd spent 2 decades searching for me. The woman who'd built an empire and then offered to share it with me. Yes, I said, pulling her to her feet and kissing her as the crowd of reporters erupted in cheers and questions. "When?" someone shouted. Sarah looked at me, her eyes sparkling with joy and mischief. "How about right now?" And that's exactly what we did. Epilogue. 2 years later. The wedding was small and private, held in Sarah's penthouse apartment with only a judge, 2 witnesses, and a photographer to document the moment. We honeymooned in Italy for 3 weeks, visiting all the places we dreamed of seeing together when we were 22 years old. When we returned, I resigned from my job as an insurance adjuster and joined Sarah's company as head of corporate security. It turned out that my skills in fraud investigation translated perfectly to corporate risk management, and I found genuine satisfaction in protecting the company Sarah had built from the ground up. Amanda remarried 8 months after our divorce was finalized. Her new husband was a real estate developer who seemed genuinely smitten with her and didn't mind her need to be the center of attention. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she was happier in her second marriage, probably because she'd found someone whose ambitions matched her own. Sarah and I decided against having children. The fertility treatments would have been expensive, risky, and emotionally draining, and we ultimately realized that our happiness didn't depend on reproducing ourselves. Instead, we established a scholarship fund for first-generation college students, ensuring that other young people wouldn't have their dreams derailed by family disapproval or financial limitations. On quiet evenings, when we're sitting together in our home office, Sarah reviewing quarterly reports while I analyze security assessments, I sometimes think about the night that changed everything. The company dinner where my wife ordered me to hide in the background, where the love of my life walked back into my world, where 20 years of separation finally came to an end. People often ask me if I regret the way it happened, if I wish it had been less public or dramatic. The answer is no. Amanda and I were never right for each other, and our marriage was slowly dying long before Sarah reappeared. The confrontation at the business dinner didn't destroy something beautiful. It revealed something that was already broken beyond repair. Sarah and I are planning to renew our vows next month, on the 20th anniversary of our college graduation. We're going to invite everyone we should have invited to our wedding 22 years ago. All the friends and family members who would have celebrated our love if we'd been allowed to stay together. Sometimes the best revenge against those who tried to keep you apart is simply living well together, and we are living very, very well.